My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm Chris Soucy.
And I'm in the most haunted building in Savannah.
It's getting there.
It sure is. It really is.
It's becoming a way station for wayward spirits.
Mm-hmm. And we currently have a demon in a box.
There's a Dybbuk box staring us down right now as we speak.
Yeah.
And it is upsetting.
It's upsetting, but I'm glad that its smell is further away now.
We just filmed the fix and we showed everybody the Dybbuk box. So if you want to go see that, head on over to Patreon.
Yes.
Patreon.
Yeah, it's we're going to be showing a lot more horrifying things in the future, and have already shown some pretty horrifying things. So
I just picked up a whole box load of things from Kyle Cobb, demonologist. We have a 3,000-year-old Egyptian cuneiform. We've got a Aztec bloodletting piercer, and we also have an Aztec death whistle.
Oh, is that the one he talked about?
Those.
Oh, that's cool.
I definitely
need to buy a fake
on
one
that.
because you can't blow on this one.
Oh,
it is
crap.
an ancient piece of terracotta. If you put your lips on it, it may very well dissolve.
Right.
No way. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It
makes sense.
It's in the building right now?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
But
That's crazy. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to see one in real life.
Well, you're going to.
They make fake ones. You can buy them off Amazon. And we will, because it's terrifying to hear. It sounds like a banshee scream. It's really insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's super hot fire. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It is really cool.
Oh, man. I'm like, after this episode, I'm like brimming. I'm like, I got to go look
see
at
the
it.
death whistle.
It's very wrapped up right now, but I do have a picture of it that I'll send you right now.
Yeah.
All right. Dope.
Go ahead.
All righty, y'all. So we are going to be doing a Ghostmail today. And I'm excited for this one because though we don't read the ghost mails before we do this, I do have to pull them from our email, and I oftentimes will get like a glimpse sometimes of what's to come. And for some reason, there always seems to be a theme in the way these come in.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's very interesting.
That's the way it works out.
And this theme today is going to be updates from previous ghost mails.
Mm-hmm.
So our first one is going to be an update ghost mail from Parajunkie Pam.
Woo-woo.
And Pam actually sent us her previous ghost mail as well because it had been a while. So I am actually going to read her old ghost mail first, and then we'll read the update and we'll discuss from there because I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But yeah, because I think currently we're still in the fall of 2024 of where we are in Ghost Mail coming in. So it's been a minute. So let's start out with this. Hello, I just became a Parajunkie today.
Nice.
So thank you, Pam, for becoming a Parajunkie.
Yeah, she's been a Parajunkie for a minute.
Yes, but I'm so excited. I have a question I've had for several years. Our last house had interesting happenings that I always felt were paranormal. I had a feeling then that it was because of the creek behind our house that was a pretty strong creek, and every year or two would flood into our yard, almost to the house. I didn't know then about the connection between water and spirits, but I just had an instinct that the activity was related to the creek. By the way, this was in Concord, North Carolina, Caribous County, and the creek was Cottle Creek. We moved from the house in 2018.
That's a great
Cottle
name
Creek.
for like a ghost story.
Hell yeah.
Down on Cottle Creek, there was the old man.
He was a hermit living in the mountains, but
Come down to Cottle Creek to drink.
we had frequent lights flickering, lights seeming to burn out only to come back on and work again, toys turning on by themselves, which required something like a switch to be moved to turn on, different toys turning on at once, a fluorescent light dimming and brightening back up by itself, a ceiling fan / light turning on and off, and loud banging sounds in the middle of the night. I think I do remember this story
right.
because I remember us thinking like, oh, it might be a poltergeist of some sort.
Right.
But also the lights would flicker when there was arguing going on, and I had some scary dreams about the house. One included a man / creature roaring in the yard trying to get in and get my son who has autism. For a couple years, he was afraid to go in his room, but would never tell me why, and now he doesn't remember.
Whoa.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. I love this house and I miss it all the time. My youngest son, 5 years old, passed away inside that house from cancer on hospice. And this was not the son with autism, by the way. I think about the house very often and miss those years there. Actually, I have 2 questions, one about the ceiling fan / light and another about the loud noise. The ceiling fan and light in the master bedroom were controlled by a remote. The remote came in with the house. The light and fan randomly turned on and off often. Sometimes it would turn on while we were looking for the remote, which would be under the bed or something. It felt like it was teasing us. Sometimes the fan came on full blast in the middle of the night. We eventually got rid of the remote and the light and fan stopped doing all of that. My question is, could it be that a spirit may have used the remote because it was an easy way to control the light and fan? After it stopped, when we got rid of the remote, people would say, see, it was nothing, like the remote was wonky. But I don't think the fact that the activity stopped without the remote rules out the paranormal. My next question has to do with the loud bangs in the night. The sound was so loud it woke me and my husband at the same time up in the middle of the night, and we would run out of the family room thinking the cats knocked something huge over, which is not out of the realm of possibility with cats. And then we'd find the cats were sound asleep and nothing anywhere had fallen. But these were loud sounds. I keep wondering what in the world made the sound. Can a spiritual, non-physical thing cause sound waves that we can hear? Were we hearing something happening in a different dimension? How could we hear a sound that came from nothing that actually happened? And I guess I have a third question. Often I wonder if my pain and grief now are somehow reaching into the past and somehow haunting our family in the past. Could my longing to jump into those days be spiritually reaching into the past and causing the paranormal activity? I think about those days in that house every single day. Thank you so much for reading my story and questions. I hope this wasn't too wordy. I'm so happy to have found you guys. Y'all peeps are the best. And side P.S., I mentioned in the fix about hearing mommy or mama and baby when I fall asleep. I don't know if that relates to losing my son. I often visit graveyards and end up finding the graves of children and parents. Last time, though, was a bit creepy, and my heebie-jeebie meter was going off. LOL. And it wasn't at it was at exactly 3 a.m. And for the record, the activity began a couple months after we moved in, which was 2 years before my son that I lost was born. So I don't think it was related to his illness. So all of that.
So is the first part the former letter?
That was all the former letter.
Right.
And then this is going to be
Okay.
the update.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like we addressed all of that.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Do y'all see Pam's comment? She's here.
Yay, Pam!
Pam!
I'm glad that you are here because we might have questions for you. This is always exciting when this happens.
Yes.
Right.
But, all right. So, hello, you guys. You all read my ghost mail on air in August. And in that ghost mail, I mentioned a dream I had during the time when all the weird stuff was happening in my house. I am attaching a file with that ghost mail to remind you, and thank you, Pam, for doing that. I appreciate it. And on the episode, Madison mentioned that she would be interested in hearing my dream, and I still am. I found my journal where I had written down this dream, so I am going to include in this email what I wrote down. I wrote down the dream on May 25th, 2012. My son, who I will refer to as Jay in this dream, was 10 at the time. He is on the autism spectrum. This was around the time that he was afraid of his room and the hallway outside of his room. He never told me what he was afraid of, and now he can't remember. He would often refuse to go into his room and avoid parts of the hall. So I'll refer to my husband at the time, as R, and I mentioned his older sister, S. My youngest was 1.5 years at the time, my youngest who we lost when he was 5. I start out describing that this took place in our house at the time, which was mixed up with a previous house. You know how dreams are. Side note, the lights in my room currently in 2024 are blinking, and you will see when I wrote down this dream in 2012, the fan came on by itself. Oh boy. That might be attachment, though.
Oh, sure.
You know? So here is the dream as written down on May 25th, 2012. R and I were asleep or in bed at nighttime in a combination of this house and our old house and old street name. Someone was opening the blinds or curtains actually from the outside of the house. I wondered how a person could do that. We had a really huge window that was really like a door. We were on a second floor with a deck, but the room was where S's room was at the old house. The person started banging on the window and slamming herself into it. I called 911 and said, someone is trying to break into our house. We were very upset. Then I noticed the person was my cousin. So I told the person, wait, it's just my cousin, but I don't know why she's mad at me or how she got here. She lives far away, and I was not really scared anymore. She looked very troubled and crazy-eyed. She didn't look right. She was sad and kind of frantic and out of control. Eventually, she came in the house and sort of disappeared. Then we noticed Jay was out there wandering around on the deck right behind where my cousin had just been. We got angry with him and he got him in. He walked off to his room or somewhere. We sat and talked about the fact that the police were coming and might arrest Jay. I said I wanted to call them and tell them not to come, that it was all right. I said that Jay would freak out and be so scared and run. R wanted to teach him a lesson and let the police talk to him or scare him. I was getting frantic. I didn't know whether to call them or not. I thought, I'm his mother. I need to protect him and stop this before it's too late. I guess in the dream, I didn't actually tell the police not to come. Then we noticed someone else was outside on the deck and our door was wide open. It was a man in a white t-shirt and pants, and he was growling. He was evil. He was looking around the deck. I immediately thought of Jay. Was he looking for Jay? So I went to find him in his room, and he wasn't there. But the front door was open. I could see Jay wandering around by the mailbox, and I could hear the growling of the man coming around the house from the backyard.
Oof.
Someone else was with Jay, but I couldn't tell who. Another child? Anyway, Jay came from the door, for the door. I don't think he saw the man, and I didn't call out so as to not give away his name or that he was there. But I was rushing him and this other person in, who, the more I think, was really like a white circular blob. Like all I could see was a head. The fan just came on by itself in real life right now. Then the man, who was still growling, was rushing towards the door. Jay came in and I shut the door right after him. I was having a hard time with the lock, shutting the door right to get it to lock. The man was growling right at the door trying to get in, and I woke up. End of dream. I remember now how scared I was in this dream and that protective feeling I had. I remember how afraid I was while I was writing that down and the light came on. Oh, I remember the other day there was a few days time at one point during those times when there were flies in the house. They seemed to be coming up from the floor vents. It was so gross, and then it was over and only happened once. I'm going to attach a picture of our old backyard. I'm just curious if you pick up any vibes. I always thought the activity had something to do with the creek, which was behind all the trees on the right. Here's a happy dream. It's a short one. Soon after we lost my boy, I dreamed that he called me on my phone, which was weird because he was 5 and didn't have a phone. But his name showed up on my phone and I answered it. And he immediately started talking very excitedly, saying, "Mommy, Mommy, this is heaven. This is heaven." He was so happy and I could feel his excitement and I woke up. Do y'all think that was real? Thank you so much for any insights you can give and listening to my story. Y'all are the best. So we'll talk about the photo first, I guess. And JT, it's in the Ghostmail email if you want to pull it up.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, your wood line is very off-putting.
Right. Absorbs the light.
It really does. Which is not to say that's not that's abnormal for North Carolina woods, but it just does feel very dense, especially being so close to a creek.
It's the gaping maw.
It is the gaping maw. It's just like the maw at Chris's house.
At the end of my street, there's just a big old maw. This opening in the wood line where it's like, oh yeah, you go in there, you get swallowed up.
Mm-hmm. And it feels that way in your wood line as well, which is interesting. As for the dream, I wonder, I don't know if it might have been, because obviously your child was encountering something to make him feel so afraid to be in his room or in the hallway. So I'm wondering if you might have been, as his mother, starting to pick up on the same entity that was, trying to interact with him. And maybe the entity became angry because you were getting in the way of its connection with your child. But
yeah, that makes sense.
That's at least kind of what I took from the dream, because it did feel very much so like when you started to intervene, everything got more aggressive.
Well, and it seemed like it was also doing some kind of testing where maybe it showed up as your cousin first to attempt to get into the building. And when it was able to infiltrate your space, it was able to show itself in a more aggressive form. Because that whole first bit where your cousin was there and you let the cousin in and then then your cousin disappeared into the house kind of raises the question of what is the pattern of behavior here? Something from the outside violently trying to get into the house, wanting to be in the house. And it's an interesting dream.
Well, especially because you said you had flies at one point in your house, which is
always a sign of nefarious spiritual activity.
Yeah. And so I mean, there's definitely a chance that could have been what was going on with it, because it does, especially because it's stuck with you so much. Pam said, "Wow, I joined right when mine was being read." I guess your ears were burning, Pam. Also, she said the flies were so gross. I can believe that. Anytime, if you ask any witch, if you tell them that you have flies that come out of nowhere and then disappear all of a sudden, they're going to tell you you've got something scary.
There's several entities that make their presence known through flies.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the really short snippet about the dream you had with your son who had passed. I do think that was him communicating.
100%. And we've said this a lot of times. We get bogged down with how many scary stories there are, scary ghost stories, but the vast majority of ghost stories, 100 to 1 stories are a loved one visiting you after they passed to tell you that things are okay, to tell you that they're okay, to soothe you and comfort you. That is universally recognized in every culture, that your ancestors, that your family members, that those you lose reach out through all these bonds of love. Now, in the last 100 years, using the telephone to do so is a common theme. And even so, I have heard many stories where people who find themselves either in a moment of distress or they will get a phone call and the call will be for a person who has passed, and it's just like something is happening to have them reach out to you through these measures, through these methods. So using a phone to communicate in any account is not abnormal. And certainly anytime a loved one visits and tells you where they are in the afterworld, that's a communication. That's a direct communication.
Yeah, I completely agree. And especially even though your son passed when he was so young, he would have been aware of a cell phone at least. And so
sure.
It would have made sense that maybe whoever was helping him direct this communication was like, oh, you can give her a call.
Right.
Sorts,
and even to that point of, understanding that that's the way you communicate,
right.
That's a method of communication, especially when you're far away, that just makes sense. It's like, if you know that the phone is so you can talk to someone far away, then that becomes the symbol of speaking at a distance.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think all of those are just very fascinating stories, Pam. And thank you so much for sharing them. I do think you had some type of connection with that home, especially, and if you're thinking of it that often, it does bring up a question of, were you haunting yourself? Because that was an interesting point that you made. If you were causing the encounters, which is not out of the realm of possibility.
No, and we've talked about that as well. Heavy emotional output can literally stain an environment, and that environment then holds the emotional context. And time is not a barrier to spirits. So it is very possible that your future self's emotional output can affect your present self's or your past self's experience.
Mm-hmm. And Pam included some other details. She said, yes, it felt like my son was a target. I dreamed often of someone being after him, but that one stood out. I had one night when I had like 3 dreams in a row of holding him, and I swear I felt him, which I think does confirm in my mind that, you were getting in the way and protecting your child in that form. Lexi also included, I'm a hospice nurse, Pam, and I 110% think that was your boy. I see it happen to nearly every family member I care for.
Absolutely.
And Lexi, please send in your stories as well, because that's amazing. Pam said, he was so happy. When I feel sad, I remember how happy he was and how he wanted to share that with me. Lexi said, I have chills. What a beautiful, wonderful thing. It's really interesting being in hospice because I feel like these kinds of things happen regardless of religion, etc. And yes, that makes sense. And he loved my phone. Thank you so much. I just drove by there yesterday. I can get obsessed, which all of that was a wonderful thread. So thank y'all so much for sharing that. And I agree with you, Lexi. I do think that religion doesn't necessarily factor in the way of your loved ones communicating with you. If they're wanting to reach out to you, they're going to find a means to do so. So, thank y'all so much for sharing. Again, Lexi, if you want to send us any stories that you have as well, please feel free to. But our next ghost mail is titled Ghosts from the Past.
There you go.
All
right. So this one comes from Jesse. Hey there, I've got a story I've been meaning to send you guys for a while now, so let's get into it. My name is Jesse from northern Minnesota. I had worked in an iron ore mine for about 14 some years above ground running heavy equipment, but most underground. In my final years at this iron ore plant, I had worked in some of the older sections that most people didn't like because it was part of the old blast furnace, dark and extremely hot and dirty, also and deadly at times. It was another night shift when it started at 5 p.m., gearing up, and all the small chatter in locker rooms, getting gear on to shift change and getting our work orders to maintain equipment and what tasks needed to be done that night. I have been tasked to take 3 of the new crew members along with another senior staff to go make sure the cold side, aka the sections of the plant that are underground and were no longer in operation were still safe and locked up. And if there was water down there, that the pumps were still in operation. It was about close to midnight. We had cleared 2 of the 5 sections. One of the new workers kept getting spooked. He kept looking over his shoulder, and so I stopped and asked what was going on. He looked pale white. I asked if he needed to go back or wanted to finish this last bit of this section before going to take a break. He just said he seen a red light from the darkness and swore of shadows. It kept moving with our group as we walked. I had asked if he would point out the direction of the light as it's pitch black down there. We have nothing but headlamps on our hard hats and handheld flashlights and the slight dim lights every so often above a pump or a service elevator. As he pointed in the direction, we heard a phone ring. It was like an old rotary phone sound. It rang and rang as we seen a little red light above the old service phone.
Oh.
That's super creepy. I looked up my other senior crew member and asked the last time these phones were in operation, and he said not since reserve mining over 30 years before my time, kid. One of the new employees laughed and said, "Good joke, guys." Grabbed the phone as there was no cord connected to it anymore. It stopped ringing just as they picked it up. We heard footsteps coming from down the hall and sounds of metal clanging around as we came from there. I turned and told everyone in the room to get to the service elevator just ahead. It's about a 2-man elevator and that's even a tight squeeze. They piled in all in a panic as we realized we all wouldn't fit, but I knew of a shortcut across old sections and belt tunnels. One of the new employees agreed they would make the run with me, while the others were scared out of their own skin. The elevator left us as we began to walk across the plant through abandoned rooms and shafts. We were walking up the final belt room when we heard another phone ring. We both stopped and looked at each other and agreed to keep walking and pass another phone. It rang and rang almost to the top at this point. We were running for what felt like an eternity. I don't know if you've ever ran in full steel-toe boots, but it's not fun. LOL. As we reached the top of the last phone next to the service door, it rang about 4 times, then stopped. As we went to open the door, it rang 4 more times. I picked it up and heard a whisper section cleared. We ran so fast, I didn't realize I ripped the phone that was attached to the wall right off, ran right to the control room door and where we agreed to meet up. When we fell through the door, I dropped everything, told my boss I was done. I won't make anyone ever go down there again, nor will I. A few months later, I transferred to another part of the plant because whatever was down there gave me nightmares every night till I left the building, and still to this day, it gives me the creeps.
Ooh, Lord.
Sorry for the long story, but I know after the eventful night, one of the new hires quit shortly after for health issues. And then sections were condemned unsafe for any foot travel. By the way, I did ask a old reserve employee what the phones were down there since they didn't have good radios at the time. They are for calling each section. It would ring so many rings per section, and whoever was on duty would give control room a report. As we ran up section 4, it rang 4 times. Whoever still was on duty down there, thank you for the cardio I didn't want that night. Thank you for your time. Always, Jesse. Stay spooky.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow.
That's an
That's
insane
insane.
story.
Great
That's
story.
a
You can
great
make a
story.
movie out of
Yeah,
that.
that
you
would be a
really
good movie.
could.
Absolutely. And so mines are notoriously haunted. Working in mines is incredibly dangerous. So many deaths occur in mines. It is not even... I don't think we appreciate what a dangerous industry mining is.
Seriously.
And to think that it's this phone that rings and is going section clear, that notion is because that has to be one of those paramount sensations. Something that really stains an environment is imagine being the one who has to call to say that this section isn't clear. That somebody didn't make it out of the mine, that, if you're watching the mine and what your job is to make sure that everyone comes out of the mine alive, the pressure and tension and emotion that builds up over time, and then it's inevitability. It's not a question. One of the most harrowing experiences I ever had was in a mine system in Bolivia where they estimate close to 3 million people died in those mines.
What?
Wow.
And it was like, how is that even possible? I couldn't even fathom it. And they're like, what you don't understand is these mountains stretch on and on and on and on. And it was the silver mining thing, and it's cave-ins and pockets where the air just goes rancid and people just choke to death.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. That's it really is an interesting story. And I wonder if it being an iron mine, if that didn't have something.
Iron, yeah. Yeah, we talk about iron on the show a lot.
Yeah, we do.
I wonder if that's not just kind of holding all of that energy, whether it was, just a residual haunting or not, if that might attribute to the fact that it's so potent down there, because iron does oftentimes, one, it protects and it deflects against negative things, which is good for you. So more than likely what you were encountering wasn't necessarily evil.
Right.
But
where you cut the iron away is a hole in that.
Exactly.
So it could trap spirits to be in an iron mine. They can't get out. They're stuck in there.
Which would be horrifying, because imagine passing in an iron mine and then never getting out.
Right.
I feel like
Being
that would be
trapped
one of the scariest things.
That would be terrible.
Yeah. How horrifying would that be to be a ghost in an iron mine? New fear unlocked. So yeah, thank you for your story, Jesse. Yeah, that's a fantastic ghost story. So please continue sharing that story with people, because it really could be made into a movie.
Yep, and send in more if you got more.
Yeah, if you have more stories from the mine or from anywhere else, you're welcome to send in anytime.
Ghostmail at hauntedcitypodcast.com.
Yes. So next one is going to be from Lauren. And so Lauren said, "Hey, y'all, it's Lauren again." So this one is also a follow-up story.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give a little bit of clarification on the environment I grew up in as background for my previous story about my father. As for the way my father grew up, when he was about 10, his older brother got cancer, and his parents had to spend the majority of their time in the hospital, leaving him with an abusive family friend who would take advantage of him and his younger brother.
No.
Oh, gosh. Times two. His family was not very religious, but the family friend was, so he spent a lot of his time at church. Psychologically speaking, when you're in your younger years, you need the most nurturing, and when that is not provided, it tends to lead to personality disorders, and in this case, narcissistic behavior.
Sure.
For me, our house was strictly religious, even though his behavior was anything but. And he forced us to keep up the impression that we were a perfect white picket fence type family. Everything I did, watched, and listened to was strictly monitored by my father, and my mom monitored him. That is why my situation worsened when they divorced. As for the paranormal, my father frowned upon me being able to see and hear spirits, as he viewed it was anything but religious, which is an interesting take, truly. The very first experience I had with, as y'all called it, the broken neck man, was in a parking lot late at night coming back to the car from a piano lesson. My father was trying to get the car unlocked, and I felt like we were being watched. I turned to see the broken neck man standing under one of the street lamps across the lot.
Ooh.
That's horrifying. I said something out loud about there being a man. My father pushed it off as nothing and told me to stop lying and said something about how God hates liars.
Oh, Lord.
I looked back to the man and he started sprinting in our direction.
Oh.
I remember screaming at him to get the car unlocked, and the man disappeared only about 5 feet away when my father finally got it unlocked. After the whole laundry room debacle in my father's new house, he decided to sell everything, buy an RV, and leave the state. That night, while I was at my mom's house, I heard heavy footsteps walking up and down the hallway leading to my room. A few months later, I got up late at night to go get some water, and when I opened the door, I saw a dark shadow figure about 5'4", peeking around the corner of the hallway only about 5 feet away. I went back into my room and immediately began saging my room and sound cleansing while praying to several different gods in different religions, asking them to cleanse the house and remove whatever was in the house. The next morning, my mom, who at this point was more spiritual than religious, told me she had a crazy dream about a dark man trying to break into our house when several huge dogs started attacking it and chasing it down the street. These are the basic rundowns of the scarier experiences I've had. I have countless experiences from different locations, such as the Savannah Theater and Bobby Mackey's, as well as experiences with helping spirits pass on, if y'all would like to hear them. Yes,
please.
Please send all of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, especially all of them, but especially the Savannah Theater story, because
Absolutely.
we are starting to hear a lot more coming out of the Savannah Theater now that it's being actively investigated often. So I'd love to hear your experiences. But yeah, this is actually really good additional information for that story, because I remember your story very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now this actually changes my perspective of what the broken neck man's purpose was. Because I want to say the last time we heard this story, or we read your story, we were almost under the impression that this was some sort of protective figure in a way, and it was protecting you from your dad.
Right.
But your mom's dream was what kind of switch things up for me, if you will.
Right.
Just because of the fact that she had a dream of dogs attacking a man while you were saging and sound cleansing and praying to a variety of gods. There are a number of different deities out there that are associated with big black dogs, and different pantheons and religions and all sorts of things. So it makes me wonder if this was not some type of parasitic entity that was also causing damage to your life, and trying to manipulate you in some way. And whatever power that came to your rescue took out the situation. It's just an interesting thought.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And I can see that being a reasonable analysis. It's a very interesting quandary. Because so often when people experience hauntings, especially ones that they can identify specifically, like being able to say the broke neck man, means that you have an image in your head, you have a notion of what it is, it's presenting itself in this way. And it's like, and what does that spirit then signify?
Right.
You know, how did it come to be? Why is it a broke neck man? Was he hanged? Did he fall downstairs? You know, was he in a car accident? That kind of thing starts to bubble up along with your own familial lore, which, you know, speaks of terrible abuse, a lifetime of neglectful pain. Yeah. Because in this area, in this region, a broke neck man is oftentimes a lynching victim. And that type of abuse and that type of specific hatred and vitriol can definitely create a sensation of suffering and rage.
Yeah.
And if your father harbored deep pains, he was carrying around all the fuel to give a spirit like that more power and energy, but you were the one who could see him. You know, and that's something that's always been fascinating to me. There are people who probably have terrible spirits attached to them, doing damage to them, but because of their nature, they have no ability to recognize them, see them, have any interaction with them. And a lot of times they just come off as sad sacks. They come off as, you know, wow, that guy's just unlucky. You know, and it's like, well, is it possible that there's a spirit that was drawn to whatever darkness was inside them or whatever exuding emotional content was happening and feeding off of it, thus causing just a litany of terrible things?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a compelling story, and by all means, share with us, your stories. I worked in the Savannah Theater for 17 years, and I have many stories of the Savannah Theater, and I'd love to hear your experiences.
Yeah, and I, especially with Savannah Theater and Bobby Mackey's, both of those places are very.
And now that Bobby
intense.
Mackey's is gone,
yes,
you know, any story that you have of Bobby Mackey's,
They did do it?
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
yep, it's fully gone, which is it's such a sad thing.
It is
Wow.
a sad
You
thing.
know, because it really was an institution in the paranormal world.
Weird that like, why would they? It's like so well known.
It's so well known, but I think it was also so poorly cared for that it was just
Why
dangerous to
didn't
be
sell it?
in
Right.
the building. I
Who
mean,
knows that Zach Bagans will buy that bad boy in 2 seconds? I'm surprised
you know,
he didn't
sometimes
say I want it.
the repair is harder than,
Right.
you know, like
Yeah, I
if the walls
guess.
are full of asbestos or if the
If that's the case,
Yeah.
no,
and there's,
for
no,
sure.
and there's no telling what the final analysis was, but my guess is somebody's building something really shiny on top of it, and that place will become ground zero for paranormal activity because everybody will be like, "Oh, this is the old Bobby Mackey." place."
Yep.
You know, it's like, yeah, well, now it's a bowling alley. Well, it's the most haunted bowling alley in the country. You know, so we'll see.
Well, yeah, just because the walls are gone of Bobby Mackey's doesn't necessarily mean the ghosts are gone.
Right. I mean, it's
you
not
know?
like the ghosts of Bobby Mackey were even from Bobby Mackey. Wasn't it like a well where
Yeah,
they
it's
thought
the
somebody
well.
had performed a human sacrifice or decapitated somebody and thrown them
Yeah.
down the well?
The well's
So-
still going to be there.
The well's still there, and that spirit's like, I don't care if you're a nightclub or a clothes
Bowling
store,
alley.
bowling alley. I'm gonna haunt you.
I like the idea of a haunted bowling alley. I feel like that would be a fun time.
It's like a Goosebumps. But,
Yeah, it would be.
It
That
Well, you know, as a child, I had a phobia of the
depends.
machine
Oh, okay.
that like gets like
Yeah.
I was always afraid that if I were too close to it, it could like crush me
it could.
Yeah.
Oh, they do that in a heartbeat.
and kill me and
Yeah.
that it wanted to.
That's
that
a very
was a part of my
specific
fears.
fear. Yeah, that makes
Well-
I spent a
sense.
lot of time in bowling alleys growing up. When I think about it,
We have room for one more.
there is room for one
Let
more.
me find us our last victim then. All right. Yep. So,
Jump, 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 jump,
All
jump,
right.
jump, 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 jump,
Cool.
jump, 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 jump.
Bada bum bum.
oh, and this is another follow-up story.
What is
Yeah.
happening?
What is
Literally.
going on? For real?
Fascinating.
It's so interesting. I'm not kidding. I'm not just picking these things to be, a theme. It's literally one after the other.
And this is
crazy.
so common in our ghost mails that they come in almost as if there's a certain level of consciousness that goes out, and everybody's like, I'm going to write my story about the Hat Man.
Right.
I've got a doppelganger story. Oh, I'm going to tell this because it's fascinating that it must be some kind of cosmic consciousness of what is propelling people to tell their stories at that specific time.
It's called the Haunted City Consciousness.
Haunted
We're
City
gonna TM that.
Consciousness.
It's
Damn.
yeah.
You're all Parajunkies now.
Yes. But this one is from Liana. So, hi again. I know it's been a while since you read my story on Ghostmail, but I just wanted to give you an update of what's been going on and some deep diving I've done to see where the source is from. A little background of my life that may shed some light on things and may be an explanation to what may be going on. I grew up in a missionary background. My family is more humanitarian aid, not thump you on the head with a Bible missionaries. So I have been to a lot of countries and have had a lot of opposition towards the work we were doing. But I went on a mission trip in 2017 where I had a weird encounter that may be worth mentioning and where I think something may have attached. I was translating for a group of nurses that was providing help to a sugar plantation on the border of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. If you didn't know, the sugar plantations in this area are owned by Cuban tycoons who give the Dominican government a good chunk of money to do their operations and keep quiet while promising Haitian workers work in a way out of poverty. That is really interesting, actually.
wow.
When in fact they come to the plantation and essentially become slaves and are trapped on the plantation until they can save enough money to pay for their freedom, but they rarely do. Of course, there are other shady things that the plantation is used for as a cover, but our goal was just to help the Haitian workers and make sure they were healthy and there were no signs of abuse. Here's where my encounter took place. This one lady who was there happened to be a Dominican that owners trusted enough to enter and exit the plantation as she pleased. It had 10-foot fences around it and sniper towers as well.
Oh, jeez.
That's horrifying. I wasn't even sure if I was going to leave. This lady acted like the town shaman and healer. Because I could translate, she wanted me to be at her every call. I was happy to help and translated until all of a sudden a patient came to the tent and her eyes turned completely black.
Oh.
And for a second, everything fell silent. She told me to tell everyone that we weren't allowed to help the patient, but before I could translate, someone was already helping them. Then all hell broke loose. She was upset that I wasn't fast enough and then switched to a French/Haitian language I didn't understand and pointed at me and ran out. We all finished and the patients we were with and got the F out before they locked us in the plantation. As we exited the plantation on the main road, all of a sudden it felt like the van/minibus we were on and got pulled backwards. The driver started hysterically crying and we all looked back and it was that lady standing in the road specifically pointing at me, mumbling.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, because it's time to save at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through February 23rd, take an extra 40% off red tag clearance boots, jackets, and sweaters. We're talking the best cold weather styles from Vince, Cole Haan, Sam Edelman, and more. All on sale for even less. All sales final. You never know what you'll find, but you know it's gonna be so good. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Whoa.
Oh my God, that's horrifying.
This is also like a movie.
It is like that. I can vividly still remember her face and features. Then in a blink of an eye, she was gone. A few months later, I was in Guatemala in their federal prison translating, and there was a prisoner who started mumbling at me as well. After this encounter, I was sick and bedridden for days, to the point that I questioned how I survived. I didn't put the two events together until I started talking to my mentors and others who went on these trips the last couple months. When I came back from these trips is when my father-in-law started having problems with me, even though he had known me for 5 years prior. And honestly, the things he had issues with are definitely things that had been told to me on these trips as well. For example, as I said in my first email, I am a quiet person and don't really stand up for myself, really, but going on these trips forced me to be a leader and kind of have to have a strong backbone. That gave me a little confidence, and that is not liked in a lot of Latin American countries, let alone small towns. I was told I was being too bold, assertive, and vocal, when I really should have seen and not heard. This is something my father-in-law has said. I think it may have been a curse that was put on me by that lady, then affirmed by the prisoner and then my father-in-law. But I also believe there are battles going on in the spiritual realm that we can maybe catch a glimpse of every once in a while. Clarification for the exorcist showing up to my house. Yeah, it was that random. It was one of my friends who had some experience, and the main argument for bringing him over was I needed to learn that I could never wear the pants in the family. Wasn't trying to. I just stood up for myself for the first time ever and said I wanted to be with my grandmother for Christmas. I wasn't silent, but was heard. Here's the kicker. My grandmother was the strongest, most opinionated woman I know. She always stood up for me and was my voice, but she was passing away. She pretty much told me the confidence to be who I wanted to be, not take everyone's opinions to heart, and to live life unapologetically. And my husband, being the amazing guy that he is, was all for it. He's my biggest cheerleader. So I stepped out and took bigger steps in my career and took chances. Every time something big could possibly be coming, it was when I would suddenly lose my job. My husband and I have come to the conclusion that something may have attached and been giving people a fear of who I could become if I wasn't silenced merely because I probably could do great things. Please hear me when I say that I am saying this in the most humble way possible. I am a nobody. And every step I took kind of ruffled some feathers. The last few months have actually been phenomenal. We went minimal contact with the in-laws, got re-blessed, and cleansed the house. So far, so good. Career-wise, I am still traumatized by administration. I was a teacher, but a lot of old students have been inviting me to their graduations, pinning, sporting events, and milestone celebrations. So that gives me so much peace knowing that I was good at my job and made a difference. As far as the house and my kids waving and seeing things, I completely am convinced it's my Oma and Opa protecting them. Let me know if you have any more questions or if something doesn't make sense. Yeah, wild story. Truly, I do feel like that woman did cause a lot of this. I mean, obviously, if she's able to come and go in a very corrupt situation and be that highly trusted, she is also more than likely highly feared in a lot of ways. So I wouldn't be surprised if that woman chose to either put you as a target for something more malicious, or if she did send some sort of curse your way. Because it is interesting that every time you get something good, you have to lose something. And that's become a trend in your life, which is very, very interesting in a lot of ways. But
well, there's also there's an interesting note to the idea of you consistently coming against resistance. Sometimes resistance is sort of telling you where your strength is. Like, it's possible that there's some kind of spiritual energy that was placed on you either by hex or curse to bar you from your true destiny. And anytime that you take steps towards or forward, anytime you step up or step out, you get this confederacy of energy blocking you. And that kind of like, there's a hand-in-hand notion to the idea that something's suppressing you. However, that could be a good thing, because now you know where there's suppression, there's a path. And the path specifically leads to greater things for you. So oftentimes when dealing with curses can't always just dismantle you. It's not always going to be like, pustules and, going blind. Sometimes it's just putting obstacles in your path. And that's kind of what it sounds like. You might have gotten some kind of obstacle demon, some kind of obstacle spirit. And when you have that sensation, when you see people kind of conspiring against you or pushing against you, maybe it's because you are showcasing the traits that would benefit you the most. And thereby the spirit has to push back. So, I mean, it's very interesting in any regard. And especially when you're dealing with Haitian lore, that brand of hex and curses, they are so full of caveats. They're so full of, gives and takes, and how do you perform the correct task at the correct time.
It's true. I think my last bit of insight that I kind of picked up from it, another theory of why these people are very aggressive towards you, is there's a theory that when there are people who have and it's going to sound very hippy-dippy, higher vibrations, if you will, than others. Because there are people out there who, in the words of the Conjuring House owner, are low density, if you will. They're low density.
I haven't thought about that in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while it pops in my brain. But yeah, the low density people, when they come across people who have a higher vibrational energy, they're just more in line with what they're supposed to be. It irritates them and it agitates those types of people, whether they know it or not. It's almost like a subconscious thing. So it could have been that's what was happening with your father-in-law, because before that you hadn't been stepping into your best path.
Right.
And so it could have just been he was a low density person.
Right.
You know,
susceptible to whatever charm is supposed to stand in your way.
Exactly. So, yeah, very, very interesting. And honestly, Lauren, you should write that story and publish it somewhere, because it is a phenomenal story. But y'all, we have reached our end of the ghost mail for today.
Woot.
I hope you enjoyed everything, and thank y'all so much for sending your updates.
Yeah, no, that's really cool, because it's funny. I feel like we're always saying, please tell us more. Please, we'd love to hear about that. And you guys, you've
come through.
Coming through. Yeah.
Yes. So anybody else who's sent in a ghost mail and you would like to send us an update as well, please do, because we always like to hear further details. But with that, though, thank you all so much again for listening to today's episode. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.